Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I absolutely love this episode and our guest. Her name is Ashley Fillmore, and our conversation today was one of my favorites. She is a podcaster of the Cheers to Your Success podcast. She's a fitness and nutrition expert, along with being the founder of Metabolic Fix online coaching program. She really focuses and specializes in hormones, perimenopause, all of the things that we love to talk about here on Learning to Glow. If you have ever dieted and you're looking to get healthy, especially after 35, while doing it the healthy and sustainable way, this episode is for you. Ashley has so many amazing things to share in this episode. It's just packed with really great information, from exercise to nutrition to hormones. We talk about much more than that as well. It's really jam-packed with great information. So thank you to Ashley for coming on and sharing with us. Definitely check out her website and her podcast. I'll link both of those things in the show notes. And send me a message if you resonated with this episode, if you learned something, if you have a friend that you think could benefit from this information, please share it with them. And if they could use some help in this department, so many of us can, please share it with them. And thank you for doing that. Thank you for leaving a review and also subscribing to the show as well. Enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Learning to Glow podcast. I'm so happy you're with us. Ashley, you are our guest for today. Welcome to our show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on, Jess. I'm so excited to be here and talk with your audience.
I'm so excited for you to share what our topic is going to be today. You do a lot of things. You are a nutrition coach, you are a personal trainer, you have your own podcast. If you could just tell us a little bit about you and what you do, and then we will get into the juicy topic.
Yeah, so my undergraduate degree is in exercise and nutrition, and right out of college, I went straight into which was my internship, became my full-time job working as a personal trainer and nutrition coach. And now I have almost 20 years of experience working with women. Fun fact, this has been my only job, actually. So once I graduated college, started my first job, I've only helped women and, transform their health, transform their body, balance their hormones. But while I was getting started in my career, I learned really quickly that there was a lot more to the equation than eat less and exercise more. So I went on to get advanced certifications in hormonal and metabolic health. And that's when I started to be able to see the missing pieces to the puzzle. It's like, okay, this is why the workouts aren't working for the women. This is why the nutrition isn't working as well. This is why women are coming in saying, hey, I've already been eating less. I've already been working out. I'm going to give this a shot too, but nothing has worked well for me. I really started to piece that together. And once I had that in place, I was just able to help clients to a whole nother level. And then fast forward, I have my own company now, Metabolic Fix, and I help women virtually all around the world transform their health, balance their hormones. I really double down on the Metabolic Fix framework, where we work women through the 3 phases of transformation, but at a customized level. So we have the repair phase, the rebuild phase, and the results phase. We do key things in each phase, and it's all customized to meet the individual and the woman where they are in their own journey. And then from there, they progress through. We help them reach their goal. And then most importantly, we teach them how to maintain it, which is something that's never talked about in our industry. And so, I help women sustainably lose weight, but I also help women that just want to get healthier, that just want to learn about their hormones, learn about their body. Hey, maybe they're in their late 30s, 40s, 50s. And it's like, what used to work for me isn't working anymore. And I want to be the best version of myself. How do I go about doing that in a healthy and sustainable way? I teach them how to do that.
Oh, I love it. I'm so excited. Everybody listening is excited to hear this too, because I hear this all the time. What you said that your clients come to you with, nothing is working anymore. Like everything is
Mhm.
different. And the things that I used to do do not work anymore for me. Did you always have a passion for health and fitness, growing up? And what made you want to go into this field in college and like make a career out of it?
Yeah, great question. So, I have always had a passion for wanting to help people. I love connecting with people, and that's something I loved about working with clients in person was just being able to have that connection and get to know them and get to know their stories and help them, on their journey. I had to make a big choice when I was in college if I wanted to go into nursing or if I wanted to go into more nutrition, health coaching, health educator, personal training. And I ended up choosing the nutrition, personal training, health educator because I wanted to be proactive and get in front of things. And that's exactly what we do here at Metabolic Fix is I get in front of things with my clients. So I knew that I wanted to help them. But to be honest with you, a lot of where I am today as a coach, as a business owner, and looking at the framework of Metabolic Fix, it really also started with my own journey. So, when I was in my early 20s, I mentioned this to you when you were recording for my podcast. I was secretly dieting, but so much of it was really around my self worth issues. So, that's a whole nother topic, but I had very low self esteem. So much of my self worth was tied into the way that I appeared, which is so sad for me to think about those days. And I didn't have Instagram and I didn't have TikTok, but I did have magazines. And I would look at women that were also personal trainers that had a very similar background to me, and I would compare to them. And I didn't feel like I was good enough. I didn't feel like I looked good enough. And at that time, I really didn't stop and think, wow, I'm looking at a woman that's on a magazine cover that's had so much editing, so much photoshopping, so much of all the things done. Now, yeah, she's probably in great shape, but you're seeing the absolute best and you're comparing yourself to that person. And so I went down a slippery slope of chronically over exercising, of restricting my eating. I had very disordered eating habits. I didn't have a full blown eating disorder. I'm very careful with that because I have seen clients and women come to me that did have bulimia or anorexia, and it was different than what I was going through. But I had disordered eating habits. I would restrict food groups. I didn't eat certain things. Foods were either really good or bad. And let's just say my bad list grew day after day after day. I mean, I was eating maybe 20 foods total because those were the only approved fat loss foods in my mind. I couldn't eat out. I couldn't go on a date night. I couldn't go out on coffee dates. I would tell my friends, no thanks. I can't do it. Or I would strategically pick Starbucks and get black coffee. That's how bad it was. So in my early 20s, I ended up losing my cycle, really hitting a dead end road, couldn't get pregnant. And when I finally got my hormones tested, I had the hormone profile at that point of a woman going through perimenopause. So that's why I didn't have my cycle. And yeah, I just hit rock bottom and I just realized, hey, I can't do this anymore. I've always been a petite person and I've never really had, I guess, everyone's opinion about weight loss is very different, but I've always been petite. So for me,
Mhm.
my smallest was around 107 pounds, maybe even a little lower, double zero. I was very unhealthy. Smaller is not always better. I was at my least healthiest when I was my smallest. My hormone profile again looked like a perimenopausal woman. I couldn't get pregnant. I didn't have my period. I had very obsessive eating habits. I mean, as I'm going through this, that version of myself, I'm grateful for her because I wouldn't be here today, but it was really hard. And then the shame that I had because front facing, I was the lead personal trainer and nutrition coach. Shouldn't I be the one that had everything together? And so a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. And as you know from your story, it's hard to stop once you start to go down that road. it's really hard to just stop. But I hit my breaking point and I'm grateful for that. And then I said, okay, I'm never going to diet again. I'm never going to restrict like that again. A size 0 doesn't mean healthy or in amazing shape. So I'm going to scream that from the rooftop because I used to believe that myth. And I'm going to do this in a healthy way. So I ended up conceiving and getting pregnant naturally on my own. I started to change my eating. I started to heal my metabolism. I started to eat more, which I know is crazy. I was eating like 1,000 calories a day. I cut back my workouts. I became really strategic about what I was doing. I was implementing all of the wonderful knowledge that I had under my belt on myself. And after my first daughter, less than 3 years later, I got pregnant again with my second daughter. And again, was able to lose weight with both pregnancies following the Metabolic Fix principles and being able now to help women all around the world implementing all that I learned. But yeah, I had quite a journey and a story. And that's why now I very much so empathize with that woman that is maybe in some ways a similar version to what I used to be, obsessed, striving to be smaller at all cost, feeling really worried about a vacation or a holiday or an anniversary, or your girlfriends want to go out for wine and you can't do it, or you feel horrible for doing it. And so food obsession, I mean, that was my reality. And it was hard to be in that spot. And I get it though. And it's not as easy as people think to just snap out of it.
It's not a good place to be. And it's mentally and the tax that it takes on your mental and physical health is so, and we talked about this on your podcast, but I can really relate to a lot of the things that you're saying. And I can imagine being in the industry that you're in, the pressure that you feel. I know people who have said, well, I'm not going to a personal trainer unless they look amazing. It's like we judge people in that industry. If you don't have all your stuff together and you're super thin, well, then why would I take advice from you? People don't understand that a lot of what's happening there with a lot of people, like, and what was happening with you is you were not in a good place at that time.
Mm-mm.
And to be in, like, have blood work as a perimenopausal person as in a 20-year-old body is so bad for us, so unhealthy for us. And I love that you can take that dark, journey that you went through and heal from it and now teach other people, because I can also say from experience, chronic dieting. Tell us about that. Like, how detrimental is that for us? And do a lot of the clients that you are seeing and working with, are they coming to you from a place of that background? Or is it, I'm sure you get all types of women, but tell us about the women who come to you and they're like, if you say to a person who's been on a diet chronically and you put them on, maybe you need to eat this much and it's more than what they're used to, they might be like, I'm not eating that, I'm going to gain weight. They're scared.
Yeah, they are. And so to answer your question, yes, I'd say 90%, Jess, of the women I work with have tried more than 3 diets, but that's conservative. Actually, most women have tried 5 to 10 diets before coming into my program. They're
Okay.
35, 45, 50. They're sick of it. They're sick and tired of it. And at that point, when you're thinking late 30s, 40s, they have families, they're maybe
Yeah.
married or have a partner, career, aging parents. It's like, I don't have the time to keep doing this. And it's the exhaustion. It's I can't keep doing this. But there's this fear of, what if I stop? What's going to happen? Am I going to gain 30 pounds? Am I going to pick up even more weight? And so, yeah, it's very counterintuitive when you come into a program like mine. And number one is, we're going to look at your metabolism. We're going to do a full metabolic assessment and really determine if you are under eating, if so, by how much. We're going to look at your hormones. We're going to take a look at you as a whole individual through all of your intake assessment paperwork and just talking to you and getting to know you and your goals and what you've done in the past and where you want to be. So let's just say you are that woman that is chronically under eating. Step one is, you're going to start in the repair phase and we're going to work on healing your metabolism. But the beauty in the work that I do is, I know what it's like to be that woman. I know what it's like to be on the other side and having someone say, you need to eat more. And I also know how scary and hard that is when you've been
Yeah.
chronically under eating either all your life or a good portion of it. And I know that it's not a switch that you can just go to your wall and turn on. It takes time. So, with that in mind, a big part of what I do is teach my client. So, a part of it would be explaining to them, this is why we're starting here. This is where you're supposed to be, calorically speaking. Here is where you are. And these are some things we need to do to get your metabolism in a better place. Because here is a truth: when you are chronically dieting, intentionally or unintentionally, your metabolism is going to downregulate. And this is called metabolic adaptation, also known as metabolic damage. You've maybe seen people talk about this online. So, what happens when your metabolism downregulates is your body becomes less efficient at burning fat and more efficient at storing fat. Well, you pair this with dropping in estrogen, drop of progesterone, drop of testosterone through perimenopause. Your metabolism at this point is really primed for more fat storage. So your metabolism downregulates. This also means you're burning fewer calories per day. So if you're thinking, wow, I used to be able to eat this much and not gain weight, and now I am gaining weight, that's a number one sign that you're dealing with some of this metabolic adaptation. The only way to improve your metabolic function and flexibility is to eat more, which is also known as a reverse diet. So, this is where we very strategically, at a rate and a pace that feels good for you, incrementally increase your calories, teach you how to eat for your body. You would be amazed how many women come to me from some of the biggest programs, diet programs, and they have no idea how to eat for their body. They have no idea how to build their plate. They thought that they were eating healthy, 100%. But when I look at their food, it is so far from eating healthy or for their hormones and their goals. So we teach them how to do that through the repair phase. So if you explain the process, I've never had pushback. I've never had a woman say, I'm not going to do this. Here's what I have happen. I'm scared. This is very different. It's counterintuitive. I'm not used to eating more. But with the guidance of your support or the program, I know that I'm going to be able to do this, but we just need to go at this at a pace that feels good for me.
I love that. Yeah, because it's true. And I've been there. Like, I've been there too, where I'm like, okay, this feels uncomfortable and scary, that because we've been told our whole lives with diet culture that we need to eat less and less and less. You talked about it affecting our metabolism. What are some of the repercussions, if any, of on our hormones? I mean, obviously there's big repercussions for our hormones, but if you have someone who comes in and they're they have had this diet mentality and they've been doing it off and on for a long time, what do you see with their hormones? Like, what are some of the challenges that you see in that department?
That's such a great question. There's a lot of things that go on with your hormones. So your metabolism and your hormones are very much so connected, and they are going to influence one another. Your hormones are messengers. Essentially, think about your hormones as little cars inside of your body driving around and communicating with one another on what to do. So environmental things, the food we eat, our sleep, there's several, our workouts, the type of workouts we're doing, genetically speaking, there's so many things that impact our hormones. Some things we can't control, some things we can. And so I like to focus on the things we can control. When you are chronically dieting, a couple of things happen. Your cortisol levels are going to go up. So your adrenal glands is going to produce cortisol. Cortisol has a really bad reputation, but it's actually a really important and key hormone. We actually do need cortisol. We just don't need too much. Too little cortisol is just as bad as too high. But when you're chronically dieting, it's a stressor on your body. So your body's going to release more cortisol. Here's the thing about cortisol that I want for the listeners to know. It's going to impact and influence more inflammation. So inflammation is not good for us. Not only does inflammation potentially make us hold on to extra weight, we don't feel as well. At times we can develop autoimmune conditions. We may have GI issues. We may have skin problems. We may feel achy. We just don't feel like our best self. And so we want to try and reduce inflammation as much as possible. Cortisol is going to increase inflammation. Also, it's going to impact your thyroid. And we know through research when you are restricting your calories, specifically your carbohydrates, that it can start to negatively make your thyroid downregulate. Your thyroid is also correlated with your metabolism and how efficiently your body burns calories. Not only burns calories, but your thyroid's impacting your digestive health, your hair, your skin, your sleep, your mood, your libido. And so if you think about this woman, and I used to be this woman, chronically dieting. So there's all the things working against me there. My cortisol is going through the roof. My thyroid was downregulated, and I could see that on my labs. Additionally, hormones were depleted. So when you start to see the impact of this with the cortisol going up, the thyroid going down, it can start to deplete your sex hormones. And that's why, as a 20-year-old woman, I had the hormone profile of a perimenopausal, let's just say 45-year-old woman. My progesterone started to downregulate, my estrogen, to the point where my body says it's not safe to ovulate. It's not safe to conceive. Her body's not in a safe spot right now. And so that's what we don't want to happen. That happens from chronically undereating for a prolonged period of time. And it also happens from overtraining. That's a huge stress on your body. So if you're doing, not trying to throw this program under the bus, but it is intense, Orange Theory every day, 6 days a week, and you're going through perimenopause and you're chronically dieting, that formula and equation is setting you up for elevated cortisol, depleting your hormones more, and causing metabolic adaptation. So we have to break you out of that cycle.
I love that you mentioned that because we're also told, it's not just the food, that we need to like kill it in the gym and we need to push ourselves really hard. I don't know if I ever should have been working out as hard as I was back when in my 20s, but I feel like my body could have handled that better than today as a 47-year-old woman. So do you think that the fitness that we recommend to people in perimenopause, you work with people over 35, do you think this needs to be really looked at as well? Because if you're coming from maybe a chronic dieting type of mindset, maybe you're also coming from an over-exerciser mindset. I've talked about this on the podcast recently, but I used to think walking was a waste of time. I was like, no, I'm not sweating. I'm not beet red afterwards. I would work out so hard that I would have to sit on the couch for the rest of the day, back when I was working out really hard. And I have changed what I do now, but is that something that you see? And what do you recommend for a person who's, my hormones are affected? I'm going through perimenopause. Like, what are some tips there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, oftentimes they go hand in hand. The dieting
Yeah.
goes with the over exercising, or I should say, exercising incorrectly for that season of life and phase of life for them. So, generally speaking, when we look at exercise, it needs to be super intentional. So, what we're doing needs to be moving the dial forward, not backwards. More is not better. And that is something we really have to reframe our mindset on. And just because we could do it when we were 20 or in our early 30s doesn't mean that, one, it was even good for you then, but two, that it's good for you now and you're going to get the results. So, a big thing you have to do is truly ask yourself, is this moving the needle forward for me? If you are dieting, you know that you're dieting. So, taking a hard look and saying, okay, I'm dieting, I'm working out. I don't feel great though. I'm maybe not seeing results, either it be weight loss or body recomposition. So, meaning you don't necessarily have a weight loss goal, you just want to work on your body composition, building more muscle. You don't see definition from your workouts, you're not getting stronger. You have to ask yourself these questions. And if you're not seeing these things change or you're regressing, that's a huge sign that what you're doing is not serving your body. And so you have to back up and say, okay, what am I doing and why am I doing it? Oftentimes, we're all guilty of falling into what's trending, what everyone else is doing. But that's really not the formula I like to use. And so, What we do here at Metabolic Fix is everything is custom to meet you where you are. So maybe you're working out at home. Maybe you have kids and you're running a business and you don't have time to go to the gym every day. So we make the workouts at home. Maybe you can work out at the gym. So the workouts, number one, are designed to meet you where you are. Every single woman deserves a program that's going to meet them where they are, accommodate their equipment, accommodate their season of life, because that's a huge barrier. There's
Yeah.
so many limitations to just even getting to the gym or working out these days that you can feel overwhelmed. Like, there's no way I'm going to keep this up. I can't do this every day. I can't get to that gym every single day. So we have to make sure that barrier is, we can overcome that barrier. Next is we have to take a hard look at really what are your goals. And if you are over the age of 30, you are going to start losing muscle mass every single year. This is all proven through research, unless you are strength training. So we know that muscle mass is the number one indicator for overall longevity and improving your longevity. So as women, we need to do all that we can to build and sustain muscle mass. We do this through strength training. We do this through eating enough and specifically consuming enough protein. But your other nutrients are important too, so fats and carbohydrates. So we have to double down on strength training. Typically, what I like to do is get the client started with 3 strength training sessions per week. But here's the thing I want for everyone to know. It doesn't have to be an hour. It doesn't even have to be 45 minutes. It could be 20 minutes. It can be 30 minutes, focusing in on compound movements. And if you're listening in and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed, 3 strength training sessions, compound movements, what is that? It's so worthwhile to work with someone that knows what they're doing, that can do the heavy lifting for you in the sense of designing your programs and giving you the type of workouts you need to be doing. Don't be afraid to lift heavy weights. Now, remember, heavy is relative. And these days we can log on Instagram and see, like I did the other day, there's an amazing woman. She's in her 50s and she was deadlifting, which is a very wonderful exercise, 250 pounds. And she was like, don't be afraid to lift heavy. Totally get that. But for some women, they're going to think, if I'm not deadlifting 250, then I'm not lifting heavy. And that's not true. Heavy is relative to the individual. So maybe for you, Jess, on a squat, heavy is 45 pounds. But for someone listening in, heavy is 20 pounds. And that is okay as long as it feels challenging to you. And the last, let's say 2 to 3 reps, you feel the challenge. It's hard for you to do more than what's prescribed for your reps. So I want to take a little bit of that pressure off to lift heavy, because we all have a day one. If you're starting as a beginner, maybe 10 pounds is heavy. Maybe 5s are heavy. Maybe your body weight's enough. So I just want to normalize that a bit too. It doesn't have to be 200 pounds or hundreds of pounds on a barbell to be heavy, but strength training and walking. Those are the only 2 things you need to start with.
I am so glad that you said that. I've never had anybody talk about this on the podcast. That is such a good point. Heavy is relative. And we talked about comparison a little bit earlier. Like you said, you didn't have TikTok and Instagram when you were going through your disordered eating, but we do now. And like, there's so much information out there. And when somebody says you have to be lifting heavy weights, I mean, I'm guilty of this. I'm like, oh, am I lifting heavy enough? What does that mean? Like, and I love that you explained that, because it's so true. It depends on where we're at and where we're starting. And then I'm sure as we get going, we can progress. And like you said, like, isn't even just doing squats with our body strength training, like when we're in the beginning of our journey, right?
Right, it is. And you can progressively over time add more weight. And I also want to give the listeners peace of mind with this. Progressive overload is essential for you to get stronger. So simply put, in simple terms, progressive overload means that over a period of time, but I want to clarify, period of time means weeks, months, and sometimes years, you are progressively adding more weight to your exercises. So as an example, maybe you start with 5 pounds on a squat. Over the next couple of months, you go up to 10 pounds and then maybe to 15. That's progressive overload. You need to apply progressive overload, but online you'll see lift heavy. And if you're not lifting more weight over time, you're not getting stronger. And so for a lot of women, they're listening in or they're reading these things and they're thinking, oh my gosh, not only am I not lifting enough weights, I'm not going up on my weights enough. And then you go up too fast and you get injured, or you get so
Yeah.
sore you can't move for a week and then you can't work out at all or even go on a walk. And so there's just so much noise. And that's why it's so important to just have these types of conversations.
I love that too. I remember the first time I heard a trainer, a fitness professional that I trusted, say that you can get a workout done in 30 minutes. And I was like, what? Like I'm spending 2 hours in the gym, pre-kids, by the way. This was a long time ago. But I was like, you can get results in 30 minutes. And that blew my mind. And it's kind of like what we were talking about when I was on, I guess, on your podcast, is that our expectations of what we think has to happen are, we need to readjust what our expectations are, because sometimes it's way less time that we need. It's intentional. Like you said, we're not just, doing whatever. We're intentionally picking our workouts, but we don't have to do them 7 days a week. We don't have to do 2 hours a day. Like, you can see so many benefits if you just do 30 minutes 3 times a week. Like, get your walks in. It's not as complicated as we make it out to be. And I don't think it's our fault. We're bombarded. I mean, if there's one industry that has confused us, I think it's this industry, because you're always hearing something that's conflicting with something else. And we're like, oh, all we want to do is like feel better and have more energy and like fit into our jeans again and feel like confident. So it's tough. And I think having somebody like you who can really go, okay, let's take the guesswork out of it. Let's customize it for you and meet you where you're at, so you don't feel like, we want to be able to make it so that people stick with it, because you get injured, or you could just say, throw your hands up and say, this is not worth it. This is too confusing. I'm over it. So
Right.
when you see people and they're struggling with their hormones, we talked about some of the symptoms, but with our nutrition, how can that help? What can we do? And like, and I'm sure a lot, but what can we do? And how does nutrition play a role with our hormones?
Yeah, nutrition plays such a big role. But something I want to say that I forgot to say earlier on is I want for women to know perimenopause is a very natural part of our journey. And these days, it's very trendy online right now. I know I was talking to you offline and said, hey, I was doing this work and helping women balance their hormones and improve their cortisol levels and optimize their estrogen and naturally get their hormones functioning better before it became the new trendy diet that everyone's now trying to sell to you through this six
Right.
week program or this program, or drink this cortisol cocktail, or eat this food to balance your hormones, or take this supplement. And it's just like so much information. And it also can make you feel ashamed, like something's wrong with you. Why are you going through this? Is this even normal? And so I just want to highlight, this is a very normal transition for a woman. And it doesn't have to be a miserable one, by the way. Even if you have a dieting history, even if you've been doing all the things wrong, like, it's okay. The great news is you can start making some changes. You can get on the right track. You can eat better. You can do so many things without taking supplements and cocktails and doing all of these things. Now, there may be times where you do need something like a Dutch test, which is something we offer that really takes a more holistic look into your hormones so we can start to pinpoint things. But that can come way later on in your journey. You don't need to immediately feel like that's something you need to do. It really starts with your nutrition. Nutrition is king. Now, sometimes that can feel very overwhelming, especially if you're trying to go through this journey alone. So, having someone help you and a coach and an expert in your corner can really make this journey so much easier for you. But if you're listening in and you're just wanting to get started, there's a big difference between eating for a diet program and eating for overall hormonal health and sustainable results. A diet program, which is what we see oftentimes, the only objective is to help you lose weight as fast as possible. There's no intention of teaching you how to maintain it, because they want for you to repeatedly do the diet. When we look at the dieting industry, 95% of women gain all of the weight back within a year. So that's a stat. So that means there's 5% of people that are maintaining their results somehow, some way. That's very sad to me. And so a
Yeah.
big part of what I do is, one, teach the client, every single client, how to eat for their body. So if you're a dieter and you come into my world, a lot of times you're on day one and you're like, where's all my stuff? Where's my meal plan? Where's this? Where's that? Most of the time I get these cookie cutter meal plans and resources. And my thing is, hey, we don't do that here. We're going to customize things for you. So a big part of our process is looking at what you eat, looking at how you're building your meals on your own for week one. And then week two, we dive into giving you all the tools that you need, but it's very customized to what you're doing. But there's some general mistakes I see women making when I'm looking at food logs, when I'm looking at what they're eating intuitively without any coaching. So I like to see things before we start coaching, because as soon as we start giving advice, things start changing. So I want to see what you're doing on your own. So number one, when it comes to your nutrition, is you have to break your old beliefs around food. And that is hard to do. It can sometimes take years of work to do this, but carbs are not bad for you. Fat is not going to make you gain fat, and protein's not going to make your body, break down and negatively impact your organs or your kidneys. Now, if you have kidney disease, if you're on dialysis, hopefully you're working with your doctor and you know exactly what you need to be doing. If you are healthy and you have not had any diagnosis like that, you are not going to have a negative impact from eating protein. And so step one is we have to go over the foundation and fundamentals of what nutrition is. And so to start with the basics, we have to establish a good set point for you to start at calorically, and making sure that just calorically speaking, we can get you to your goal. When I work with clients, the first thing we do is we start with protein. And here's the reason. All women I work with when getting started are generally eating way too little protein. It's easy to go for carbs. They're convenient. Sometimes they're lower in calories. Sometimes, depending on the diet you're doing, it's what you want to eat. And I've even had women come into my world that's doing keto, that's eating keto-based foods that are highly processed. So we have to clean those things up as well. So number one is protein, and getting your diet built around protein. Without working with an individual, every single woman, I would say, should shoot for a minimum of 20 grams of protein to 30 grams. Protein is going to help stabilize your blood sugar, which we didn't talk much about insulin, but insulin has a big role in all of this as well. And when you're going through perimenopause, you're going to notice that there's more insulin resistance, is more prone. And so we have to improve your insulin sensitivity. So we have to focus more on protein. It's very satiating. It's going to help stabilize your blood sugar for the day. So I don't know if you knew this, Jess, or if your listeners did, but what you consume at breakfast will impact your blood sugar in the afternoon. So if you are craving sugar, craving carbs, low energy between, let's say, 12 and 3 p.m., you need to look at your breakfast. You're not consuming enough protein and you're not consuming enough fiber. So I want to take a look at adding in 20 to 30 grams of protein. And then you can pair in some berries, or maybe some avocado with your eggs, or you could do some oatmeal, berries, and have some eggs on the side, or make a really clean protein smoothie that's not a sugar bomb. So limit yourself to one serving of fruit, add in healthy fat, add in, I like to say, a standard of 1.5 scoops of protein powder to give you a little more protein. But every meal needs to be built that way. So then you go to lunch, and that's what you want to do. Protein is so important for your blood sugar regulation, for staying satisfied between your meals, for building muscle mass, for hormone production. And then we also then want to take a hard look, if you're going through perimenopause, to make sure you're eating enough fat. Fat is something that still to this day, I know keto is popular, but a lot of women are scared to eat fat because it's more calorically dense. Fat is essential for estrogen production. So if you're going through perimenopause and you're already not eating enough fat, you're making it harder on your body to have the essential building blocks it needs to have the hormones you need to feel your best. And so making sure you're consuming enough fat. And for some women, this is 15 to 20 grams of fat at one meal. And that can feel like a lot when you're thinking, oh, I've only been consuming minimal fat. That's the goal. Or I don't eat things like nuts or avocado or salmon or red meat because I'm afraid of the extra calories. You want to add those foods in. And carbs as well. But if you're going through perimenopause, we really need to tailor your carb intake for your body, for your overall health. We need to talk about your cycles. Are they still coming regularly? What are some of the symptoms you're having? If you are struggling to lose weight, where are you struggling to lose weight from? Is it related to your suprailiac region, which is your what we also refer to as love handle region? Let's take a look at your body comp. Let's take a look at you and how you feel when you have carbs. And we really want to customize your carb intake to fit your goals, but you definitely need some. And as I mentioned, if you are on a low carb diet and you're struggling to lose weight, your energy's low, you're not using the bathroom every single day, having a bowel movement every day, you feel cold all the time, I highly recommend getting your thyroid checked because we know prolonged dieting can downregulate the thyroid as well. Or specifically, reducing your carbs too much can downregulate the thyroid, which typically comes from being in that chronic deficit for too long.
Oh, yeah. I love what you said about it's so deeply ingrained in us a lot of times. Like some of your clients are afraid of fat. I grew up in the 90s. So when that was the key time of like fat makes you fat and Susan powder and all that.
Mhm.
And so I had zero fat. I remember going into college and my mom would say, how did you get through college? Because you had no fat. Like, what about your brain? It's so important for brain health. And I was
Exactly.
just so afraid of calories and fat. It was like that was just something that I did not have. I did not have enough protein. I had zero protein. I was like it was mostly carbs, but I thought because it
Mhm.
was fat free that it was good. And then I started gaining weight in college and I would run all the time too. And I was like, this isn't fair. Like I'm gaining weight and I'm basically eating carbs and doing cardio nonstop. So that was like my early 20s. It's wild the things that we've been told, right? And that stick with us and
Right.
they're they're so bad for us that it took a long time. I will say like since I started really looking at my protein because we think that we're getting if we're not really looking at it and tracking it, you guess like what you're getting. I would just
Mhm.
guess I was getting enough and I was not. I was even just recently knowing all the things that I've learned from this show and everything about nutrition and I started tracking like I started in October last October and I was blown away. I'm like, I'm getting such a little amount. And now that I'm really in perimenopause and this is like an area that's really important to me. The funny thing is, my skin improved. Like everything changed from really paying attention to that protein. And it is something that helps you stay satiated so much longer than if you were to have a breakfast without the protein. That alone is going to help you on your fat loss journey.
Yes. It's going to make a huge impact on your fat loss journey, on your health journey. And then hopefully, when you are happy with your body composition and you're ready to go into maintenance, it's going to help you sustain your muscle mass as you get older. As I mentioned, you're going to start to lose muscle every year unless you're being proactive about building and sustaining muscle. And you're right. I mean, a lot of times a woman will think, oh, I had 2 eggs for breakfast. That's enough protein. That's only 12 grams of protein. Or I'll have women come into my program, new clients. We very quickly teach them the right way to do things. Or, oh, I thought oatmeal was a protein. No, it's not a complete protein. Peanut butter is not a complete protein. Hummus is not a complete protein. And so it's important to really first know what is a protein and then two, have targets in mind so you can really start working hard on hitting that target every day. And you're going to be shocked because a lot of times we're thinking 2 eggs in the morning is enough protein, but that's not 20 grams of protein. 3 eggs isn't 20 grams of protein. And so you do have to get strategic on how to get it into your diet, how to balance things out. It takes some time. Be patient with yourself, but you will see so many positive impacts on your health, on your hormones, on your strength, on your skin, your cognitive health just by simply really doubling down and focusing on these things.
Yeah, and I think like you said, there's a little bit of a learning curve. For me, at first I was like, how am I going to get this in? And then you find what works for you and every day doesn't have to be a new meal. Like most weeks I eat the same thing and then maybe I get sick of it and I try something else and I figure out what can I pair on my plate that will equate big enough protein so that I can knock some of it. I like to knock a lot out in my first meal, so just a
Mhm.
good head start. But I want to ask you and then I'll have this be our last question. But one of the things that you said I was really impressed by with your program. You help people go from this process, this journey, to help them with the maintenance part, which is where
Mhm.
everybody is just left to fend for themselves. That is so true. I never thought about it like that. Like, okay, you lost the weight, bye. And then if you go back to the way it was before the diet, nothing is going to stick. So tell us how you do that in your program. What does maintenance look like, and keeping it off for good so that we can just live this new way of life?
Yeah, this is such an important topic. I'm so glad that you asked this question because a lot of times when we do these diets, we think two things. I lose the weight, so I can just go back to the way things were because I lost the weight. So I'm just going to go back to the way I was eating and the way I was living my life. Subconsciously, we're not even necessarily thinking like I'm going to consciously make bad choices and gain weight back, but you just think, oh, I lost the weight. So you just naturally kind of start to revert to what feels natural, what feels normal for you. So there's that. And that's a huge mistake. But also, there's a second group of people that think, whatever I did to lose the weight, I have to stay here. So this is when the chronic dieting really kicks in because that individual thinks they have to stay in a caloric deficit forever. So think about this. You're doing a diet, you've cut your calories back to lose weight, you reach your goal, and you think, I have to stay here. This is the amount of calories I need to just maintain. When you think about it, it actually, in a sense, is like, oh, that can kind of make sense. This is where I lost weight here, so I must need to stay at this level to maintain. That's not the case. When you do that, remember you're in a deficit. So being in a deficit is meaning that you are eating below your maintenance caloric intake, which is also known as the TDEE. I talk about this on my show so much. So if your listeners want to learn more on my podcast, Cheers to Your Success, I dive into all of this because it can feel very overwhelming at first. But your TDEE is your maintenance. So if you're in a fat loss phase, you're eating below maintenance because the one thing I want for you to know about maintenance is that is how many calories your body needs to maintain. If you're losing weight, you're not in maintenance. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that because a lot of women will say, "I'm in maintenance, but I'm still losing weight." I'm like, "You're not in maintenance. You're still in a deficit because you're losing weight." So maintenance is you literally maintaining your weight. Now, as women, our weight will fluctuate a couple of pounds. That's normal. You haven't gained weight if it's your time of the month and you're up 2 or 3 pounds. It's very normal. But if
Mhm.
you're losing weight consistently, half a pound or more, then you are definitely still in a deficit. Now, a lot of times that client or that woman will think, okay, this is how much I need to sustain my weight loss. So when you stay there, this is when metabolic adaptation happens, which we talked about earlier, because you're not bumping your calories back up, you're eating below maintenance. Sometimes you're even eating below your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate, how many calories you need to just function, have organ function, breathe, the basic movement, the basic functions in life, not including your daily movement at all. And so your metabolism downregulates. You start burning
Mm.
fewer calories. Your energy starts to drop down. You start to not maybe feel as strong during your workouts. You're not seeing improvements. You're working out 6 days a week, 5 days a week. Anything more than 3 days a week, you want to see the improvements for sure. 2 to 3 days a week of strength training, you should still be making progress if you're doing it right. And so you see this. So naturally, you start to fall back into old habits and gain the weight back because your energy's low, your cravings go through the roof. Your body wants to be at homeostasis really badly, and it's going to do all that it can to stay there. So you'll notice cravings go up. Maintenance is essential, but the diet programs aren't going to teach you how to maintain. It's not a multi-million billion dollar industry because they're doing things right. People are re-signing for these diets, but they're blaming themselves. It's like, I'm the problem, not the diet. Maintenance is where you should be most of the time. A fat loss phase is not a year-round journey. Your fat loss phase should happen and then you transition out of maintenance. When you transition out of maintenance, you're strategically, hopefully working with someone, but your calories are going to get bumped back up. But here's the beauty if you do it the correct way. And this is what we do in the results phase of the transformation. We bump you back up very strategically. For some women, there's not a huge difference because we've put them through a fat loss phase in a very sustainable and healthy way. and they don't gain any weight because their metabolism is healthy. We went through the process in a way that's very healthy and sustainable. So maintenance is where you should stay at for most of the year, and then you drop down into fat loss. Maintenance is great for your hormonal health. Maintenance is great for building muscle. Maintenance is great for energy. You're going to feel better. You're giving your body the maximum amount of nutrients and fuel. Think of your food that way to perform and feel its best. Anytime you're dropping below maintenance means that you're putting your body in a deficit, which also means a micronutrient deficit, not just macronutrient. So your macronutrients are your protein, fats, and carbs, but your body needs minerals and vitamins. And when you're eating below maintenance, you're not giving your body everything that it needs, which isn't optimal if you think about it in that sense. And so we need to get you back to maintenance, but it should be strategic. You should never stop a diet today. Let's just say you're dieting. You're consuming 1,700 calories, 1,600 calories. You shouldn't immediately go back to maintenance. Let's say maintenance is 2,000 calories for this example. If you overnight bump yourself up that quickly, you will see weight gain. So you shouldn't do that. That doesn't mean anything's wrong with your body. You just took it up too fast. Your metabolism's really adaptive, but we have to give your body time to catch up with the changes. So we want to go slow and steady. It doesn't take long to get back in maintenance. And I've never had a client have a problem with regaining weight in maintenance. That's where they stay. That is the end game. So we're actually not done with the transformation until you get established in maintenance and your intuitive eating.
I love that. That is so different. And that's probably why you see so many results that you do with your program. So I'll make sure I link the website so that everybody can learn more about it for anyone who's interested. I'll also link your amazing podcast. So I know everyone listening to this podcast likes podcasts. So go check out your podcast. And just thank you so much for sharing all of this. It's so, so helpful and so needed. You're incredible. Thanks for being with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.